Lovers and Friends by Fanfiction.net user Mission Accepted. Soft snoring filled the air as the room's occupants continued to sleep. The water was nice and clean, inviting all those that lived beneath it to sleep in. However, the peace and serenity of the morning was interrupted by an abrupt, harsh honking of a bullhorn alarm clock. Bulbous blue eyes popped wide open. "It's morning!" SpongeBob shouted, popping out of bed. "You know what that means, Gary?" he asked his pet snail, who seemed none too pleased to be woken up. "Meow," Gary said, retreating into his shell. "That's right. It's time for—" SpongeBob jumped into the air, doing a mid-air spin and magically appearing into his clothes. "Work!" Rushing down the stairs, SpongeBob made his way to the door, and after filling up Gary's bowl, went outside. "Hey, SpongeBob," Patrick bellowed, waving from under his coconut roof. "Hiya, Patrick," SpongeBob yelled back. "You want to go jellyfishing?" he asked, falling to the floor. Come on, Patrick. You know I have to work. Besides, it's a little for early for that, don't you think? Tartar sauce. "How about when you get back? I really need to talk to you," he said, a slight frown on his cone-shaped face. "Sorry, Patrick, but I have to work late," SpongeBob said apologetically. "Fish paste, but I really need to talk to you. Whatever it is, I'm sure it can wait, can it?" "I guess," he muttered, a frustrated look on his face. The window to the Stonehenge between them suddenly burst open. "Will you two barnacle-heads shut up? Some of us are trying to sleep here. What are you doing up this early anyways?" asked a disgruntled Squidward. "Oh, hi, Squidward. I always get up at 5 in the morning to clean the inside and outside of the Krusty Krab." Squidward frowned. "Ask a silly question. Well, if you're going to do it, then get on with it so I can have some peace and quiet." "Okay, see ya, Squidward. See ya, Patrick," SpongeBob yelled, waving goodbye as he began to jog off. Patrick watched SpongeBob leave with an expression of longing and loneliness on his face. "Hurry back, SpongeBob. Hurry back." $1, $2, $3, $4. I love money. Yes, I do. $5, $6, $7, $8. Money, money, money. Makes me happy, too. Mr. Krabs sat behind his desk, counting his money, singing lightly, when SpongeBob suddenly burst into the room. "Mr. Krabs, Mr. Krabs, Mr. Krabs, you'll never believe it." "Yes, boy, what is it?" "It's the most awe-inspiring, amazing thing ever." Yes, I found—" "Spit it out, boy. What did you find?" I found... "What?" "I found a Krabby Patty that's shaped just like Mermaid Man. Looks like there's evil afoot. Ta!" "What?" "Look," SpongeBob said, presenting the patty. "Doesn't it look just like Mermaid Man?" Mr. Krabs stared blankly at SpongeBob, his eye twitching. "SpongeBob, get back to work. You're supposed to be making Krabby Patties, not playing with them." Aye, Mr. Krabs, you're right. I'll just save this for later," he said, skipping out. Mr. Krabs sighed. "Poor boy has a whole lot of heart and no sense." Mr. Krabs went back to counting his money. "Hey, Squidward. Hey, Squidward. Hey, Squidward. Hey, Squidward. Hey, Squidward. Hey, What? Can I ask you something?" "What is it? You better not ask me about your stupid Mermaid Man patty." SpongeBob blinked. "Can I ask you something else?" Squidward sighed. "What?" "Do you think Patrick's been acting weird lately?" Squidward gave SpongeBob a pointed look. "He always acts weird. How would I be able to tell if he was acting more weird than usual? He's supposed to be your best friend. Now please, leave me alone. I'm very busy." With that said, he went back to flipping through his interpreted dance magazine. SpongeBob frowned. Lately, he felt that Patrick has been acting strangely, especially towards him. He couldn't figure out what it was. Patrick was his best friend, but he'd been so busy with work for the past couple of weeks that he hadn't been able to play as much. He felt like he was being a bad friend, and maybe Patrick was beginning to feel that way too. SpongeBob gasped. Maybe that was it. Maybe the reason why Patrick had been acting weirdly, and the reason why he wanted to talk to them so badly, was because Patrick wanted to tell him that he was replacing him. That he was getting a new best friend. "Oh no!" SpongeBob gasped and immediately began crying. Huge racking sobs that gathered the attention of everyone in the restaurant. Squidward rushed in. "SpongeBob, what the heck are you doing? You're bothering the customers, not to mention me." SpongeBob sobbed out. "Oh, Squidward, this is terrible. The worst news ever." Mr. Krabs stormed in. "SpongeBob, what's going on here? You're scaring away me money, customers." SpongeBob ran over to Mr. Krabs. "Oh, Mr. Krabs, I don't know what to do. This is horrible." "What, boy? What's wrong?" Patrick, will you get on with it? What about Patrick? Squidward asked impatiently. Patrick doesn't want me anymore. Dead silence ran throughout the entire restaurant. The silence was only interrupted by the hiccuping sobs that nigh the devastated yellow rectangle squeezing Mr. Krabs shook himself out of his stupor. He didn't know what the hell was going on, but he knew it was bad for business. SpongeBob, I'm not sure what you're talking about or what you mean, but it's clearly making you incapable of cooking me food. Why don't you go home and rest for the day? SpongeBob looked up with watery eyes. I couldn't do that. Who would make the Krabby Patties? Squidward can do that. He ignores Squidward's outraged cry. This isn't a request, boy. Captain's orders. Go home. And Mr. Krabs insisting, SpongeBob gathered himself and left. He had to talk to Patrick. Patrick was at home, lounging on his chair, staring with unseeing eyes at the TV. His Ming was too preoccupied to be paying attention to whatever was going on TV. He didn't know what to do about SpongeBob. He was feeling very confused. SpongeBob was his friend, but the way he felt, he wasn't sure what to make of it. He hadn't felt this way since he had his first chocolate bar, and even that feeling couldn't compare to what he was feeling now. It was like his first candy bar experience multiplied by 100. He didn't know what to do about the situation. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to act. He didn't know, and it bugged the hell out of him. He had never been awkward around SpongeBob before, but now he felt unsure of himself and his status. He had never had this kind of problem before in his life. Usually the most complex decision he had to make was what he was going to eat. This was way out of his element. He needed to talk to SpongeBob. He knew that for sure. He didn't know how to go about it. Patrick was interrupted from his pondering when his coconut roof was lifted, and SpongeBob came running in, sobbing, Patrick, oh Patrick, I'm sorry I haven't been there. I was being insensitive. I want you, please. Please don't replace me with another friend. SpongeBob clung to Patrick. Patrick didn't hear anything past, I want you. This was it. The moment he had dreamed of. Maybe SpongeBob had felt the same way he did all along, and he was confused too. Maybe that was why he'd been so busy. If he kept his mind occupied with work, he wouldn't have to face the reality that he was in love with his friend. SpongeBob must have finally cracked and realized he couldn't deny his feelings for me anymore, Patrick thought. His eyes welled up. I understand him completely. He must have been hurting so much. Patrick slowly wrapped his arms around SpongeBob. It's okay, SpongeBob. I understand everything, and I feel the same way. SpongeBob looked up, teary-eyed. You do? Patrick's smile turned feral. He had waited too long for this moment to come when he was going to make sure his fantasies became a reality. Tightening his grip on SpongeBob, he lowered his head and gave SpongeBob a deep, passionate kiss. SpongeBob froze, unsure what was happening and what to do. Then he began to push and struggle in Patrick's ever-tightening grip. Patrick, what are you do? He was cut off as Patrick used the opportunity to force his tongue in his mouth. Patrick kept his grip tight, keeping total control of the situation. Patrick put his tongue down as deep as it could go, probing, seeking, invading. Tearing off SpongeBob's clothes, he began to placing feverish kisses down SpongeBob's throat. Or was that SpongeBob's chest? SpongeBob's body seems to have skipped the neck and went straight to the chest. Ignoring the oddity, Patrick went back to work, biting, nipping, sucking, his hands continuing to explore. Patrick finally stopped to look at his handiwork. SpongeBob lay on the floor, panting, slick skin, covered in bites. Patrick grinned before getting up, giving SpongeBob a quick kiss. Be right back, he said, going to his drawer. SpongeBob panted, staring up at nothing. What's happening? What is Patrick doing? I can't. This isn't. What? SpongeBob couldn't think coherently. He was unprepared to deal with this kind of development. Patrick came back in the room with handcuffs, a ball gag, and another object he couldn't identify. SpongeBob looked on in apprehension. Patrick, what are you doing? Patrick didn't answer. He kept coming and knelt in front of him. Turn around, he said solemnly. SpongeBob quivered. Patrick, I think I should go. With a dark in his eyes, Patrick said, You're not going anywhere. Now turn around. SpongeBob must have hesitated for too long, because before he knew what was happening, he had been flipped onto his stomach, his hands pulled behind his back and handcuffed, the ball gag tied around his mouth. Patrick's grin was absolutely feral as he looked down at SpongeBob. He was going to enjoy this. Scooting closer to SpongeBob's form, he began kissing down SpongeBob's back, leaving a moist trail as he went lower. He pulled down SpongeBob's underwear, gazing at the round, yellow cheeks of SpongeBob's ass. Patrick felt himself harden. Using his right appendage to make a finger, Patrick slowly began to explore SpongeBob's puckered opening. SpongeBob's eyes popped wide open as he felt Patrick do what none had ever done before. SpongeBob tensed in pain. His eyes welled up. He couldn't comprehend what was happening to him. Patrick removed his finger abruptly, but soon replaced it with something else. Something that started off small, but got bigger and wider as it went further in. SpongeBob tightened his eyes. He could feel his body opening, slowly widening to accept the foreign object. He relaxed by inches as his body got used to the object that was slowly moving in and out of him. Soon, involuntary sounds of pleasure left his throat. Patrick stopped when he heard the first moan of pleasure leave SpongeBob's throat. He grinned. SpongeBob was finally getting into it. Leaving the apparatus and SpongeBob's behind, he stood up and removed his shorts. It was time to get down to business. Patrick removed the apparatus and knelt behind SpongeBob. Positioning himself, Patrick leaned over SpongeBob's body and began to nibble around the hole that served as his ear. Just relax yourself. It'll only hurt for a second, bitch. Giving a vicious bite, Patrick thrust forward. SpongeBob gave out a muffled scream. He gritted his teeth as much as the gag would allow. Barnacles, did it hurt. Saliva began to drip down from the ball as he panted, trying to relax in hopes of lessening the pain. Oh, tartar sauce. You are so fucking tight, Patrick groaned, his eyes closed. He leaned forward to remove SpongeBob's gag. I want to hear you scream for me. He slowly began to moving in and out, eyes still closed. As SpongeBob felt himself widening, he began to come back to his senses. This shouldn't be happening. They are friends. Friends didn't do this. Patrick, please. We shouldn't. As SpongeBob protested, Patrick reached his hands down to play with SpongeBob's genitals. SpongeBob groaned loudly as a wave after wave of pleasure washed over him. Yes, harder. Smack my ass and call me a whore. Patrick blinked in surprise before giving a savage grin as he quickly complied. Yeah, you like that, don't you, bitch? Yes, fuck me, Patrick. Fuck me hard. Patrick began ramming forward, smacking SpongeBob's ass. Yeah, take it, whore. Patrick moved his hands to fondle SpongeBob again. Come in my hand. SpongeBob felt a pressure built up inside of him. He wasn't sure what he was feeling, but he felt that if he'd just let himself go, he'd reach nirvana. Complying with his own wishes, he let himself go. The orgasm caught him by surprise. SpongeBob screamed as he felt his seed wash over Patrick's hand. Ah, I'm coming, Patrick roared as he emptied himself into SpongeBob. He fell forward as he finished, undoing the cuffs and cuddling SpongeBob to his chest. I love you, SpongeBob. You're my very best friend. SpongeBob's eyes opened. He began to struggle out of Patrick's grasp. Patrick released him reluctantly. Where are you going? SpongeBob didn't answer. SpongeBob? As SpongeBob continued to walk forward and ignore him, Patrick began to cry. Maybe I was wrong, and SpongeBob doesn't want me. Patrick's somber thoughts were interrupted as SpongeBob returned, holding a bottle of chocolate syrup, an impish smile on his face. Ready for round 2?